Hello. Do you want to hear a politician telling the truth? If so, stay tuned. I'm going to play you a little video clip in a moment, and it features Liz Truss. That Liz Truss, yes. She's about to be asked the question in this clip whether she believes that Keir Starmer is further left than Jeremy Corbyn. And her answer, I believe, is interesting and also truthful.
What do you think about Peter Hitchens was saying Starmer's actually further left of Corbyn?
I don't think that's true, particularly.
Yeah, Corbyn's pretty left.
I think Starmer is, he's actually if you look at what Blair tried to do with the Constitution, creation of the Supreme Court, veneration of human rights, Starmer was part of that in the 90s. That he's a kind of continuum of that sort of philosophy.
With less charisma.
Yeah.
Just
true.
Just nothing.
But I think, I don't know if Corbyn's more of a Democrat, but I think, Starmer's a believer in the technocracy. He believes lawyers know best, technocrats know best, the people don't know best. Whereas I think, funnily enough, I think Corbyn's actually more of a populist.
So what is the technocracy? From this article, Technocracy, a form of government where policymakers are appointed or elected based on their technical skills or proven performance. Technocracy is a form of government where people with immense knowledge in science and or with technical expertise in an area are elected to public office. The decision makers are known as technocrats, and they are appointed or elected to hold office based on their expertise in a given field of knowledge. Consequently, the decisions they make are based on scientific data or objective methodology that is backed by science instead of mere opinion. And I have to say, that sounds okay. It actually sounds quite attractive. What's not to like? Well, let's go on with the article. Technocracy differs from traditional democracy, where leaders are elected to office based on their popularity. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Just because they're popular, what are they going to do? What's their skill set? Do they know what they're talking about? Or are we just running on pure charisma here? Technocrats must possess proven performance and relevant skills in their field of expertise rather than gaining popularity based on their political affiliations. Again, that seems to be a cleaner way to run a company, a country. And then, however, what I want to do is to go on to this. One of the criticisms of technocracy is that it can leave a section of the population isolated, as the government uses public resources to implement the policies and regulations of technocrats. Usually, technocrats make decisions that focus on scientific and technical principles, which may vary from the nature of society. They decide based on data and research methodology, whereas the electorate is more interested in programs that directly impact them. And I think it's probably fair to say that good governance lies somewhere balanced in between those two things. People are interested in things that affect them, and they are also interested in things, therefore, that are going to benefit them and feel threatened by those things that may potentially harm them. And one of the, I suppose, threads that's running through this particular part of the article, this criticism, is that if things are decided without feeling, without taking into account the feelings of the population and also their wants and desires and motivations, then we can have a very lopsided culture or force trying to impact that culture. Another criticism of technocracy is that it is undemocratic, since it favours people with technical expertise over the will of the population. In a democratic society, people are elected or appointed into office based on the choice and the will of the electorate. And that should very much always be the case. I think what people are looking for, particularly these days, particularly in the UK, after a lot of disappointment with the Tory government, what people are looking for, we're looking for, is a government, is a leader who will listen, who takes into account what is important to the population. And I don't think we're seeing that. From this article, narcissism in political leadership is nothing new. Traits like entitlement, self-importance, and a lack of empathy can often be found in those who seek power. For leaders, this self-centred approach might manifest as a belief that they deserve certain privileges simply due to their position. This sense of entitlement can create a significant disconnect between leaders and the very people they claim to represent. Starmer's acceptance of perks during a period of economic struggle mirrors this behaviour. It can be seen as a sign of narcissism, a belief that he is above the fray, deserving of benefits that the average Briton can only dream of. While some might argue that such perks are part and parcel of political life, which are usually only those who directly benefit, it's this very attitude that often leads to public distrust and the perception that politicians are out of touch with the reality of those they serve, which of course these days is more akin to a normalcy amongst the political class of a them and us dichotomy. What we have is a government which appears to be steamrollering along and doing what it wants to do, what Keir wants to do, because he believes, as Liz Truss says, in this technocracy, that the planet ultimately, make no mistake, the planet should be ruled by these people who are superior, who've technical expertise. And I've no problem with leaders having technical expertise, of course, but we have to make sure that ethically and morally they are on the side of the population. They understand, and I've said it before and I'll say it again because I think it's so important, they understand that they're there to serve. They're not there to command and control. They're not there to say, I'm telling you this is the thing to do because I know best. How do you know best? Because you're a lawyer? What does that actually mean? The law is there to be rewritten and challenged and updated, so that means that a good lawyer is going to take that input. A good lawyer will be there to serve. A good lawyer understands that the law is there to ensure that the population is happy, whole, healthy, cared for, looked after, not predated against. And if we have people in this technocratic sphere on the planet who consider themselves to be better than the great unwashed, this is not a good mixture. It's not a healthy relationship. It is ultimately a toxic relationship. And so Keir bowls ever forward. And notice also how his predilection seems to be like a moth to a light towards the world stage, to be on that. And of course, it can so happen that his desires, his hunger for power, greater and greater influence, and to get towards those people who he perceives to be more powerful and more entitled than him, that could align with what we want as a population. Peace, for example. Just to finish off, here's Keir with Donald Trump, and you can see the legal brain at work here. He's had this little phrase in his mind, or maybe he's just extemporized in the moment, probably not though, and took the opportunity to emphasize how close that the UK and the US are playing, he hopes, to Donald Trump's emotions and sense of affection for the UK. And I think what we see is frankly hilarious. Keir basking in the limelight of being with the US president and loving things and looking pretty happy with himself, suddenly gets wrong-footed because he doesn't seem to be very good on his feet, strangely enough. And so what we see is someone with a person who's more powerful, enjoying that, trying to be clever, and because people are just a little bit unpredictable, Keir gets slightly shall we say, flummoxed is too strong, but knocked off balance. Enjoy.
You have done very well over the years, haven't you?
We have. I'm very proud of our country, and but we've also always been backing each other up between our two countries. That is why this is the greatest alliance for prosperity and security I think the world has ever seen. Whenever necessary, we've absolutely backed each other up, and that's at the
Could you take on Russia by yourselves?
Well,
all right, one or two more.